of Early Learning and Literacy and the Office of Assessment and Standards. We've kind of come together in this series to provide some insights into foundational literacy skills and the 2024 South Carolina College and Career Ready ELA standards, particularly focusing on the Foundations of Literacy strand. We are so happy that you are here today. We look forward to a really great series of 4 sessions where we're going to be learning a lot about foundations of literacy and instructional practices that support those standards and indicators. So great to have you this morning. I'm kicking us off today. My name is Mandy Hawker, and I work with the ELA Standards team at the South Carolina Department of Ed in the Office of Assessment and Standards. My job is to primarily support grades kindergarten through 5 with the ELA standards in our state. But joining me today, I also have 2 partners from the Office of Early Learning and Literacy, Kim and Audrey.
Hey, good morning, everyone. I'm Audrey Goninen. I am Literacy Specialist with the Office of Early Learning and Literacy. Currently, I support schools in the Lancaster and Chester school districts, and I am so excited that you are joining us today.
Good morning, and I am Kim Camp, and I actually serve Lawrence 55. I see some of my friends from there on here, and Union County as well.
We also have 2 of our elite backup dancers here from the Office of Assessment and Standards. 2 of our teammates have joined us this morning just to help with logistics in our webinar. This is a pretty large crowd for us on a webinar. So we have Casey Prince Harvey, who is our Humanities Education Associate with ELA Support, and then Brenna McCormick, who is our secondary level ELA Education Associate. So if you have any questions or need anything, make sure to drop them a message in the chat and they'll be able to support you with those requests. But we want to know who you are and who we have with us today. So in the chat, if you will, please drop your name, the role that you serve, and the district or school that you support. So go ahead and let us know who you are in the chat. All right. And Audrey, can you tell us some of the districts or schools that we see represented this morning?
I am seeing Anderson 1, Lawrence 55. Dylan is here. Fantastic. Instructional coach from Hickory Tavern School, Greenville County. Fabulous. Thank you for joining us. Wonderful. Beaufort. Well, we are from one side of the state to the other. We've got
all across the state. That's
here.
our favorite part about these virtual webinars. We love that we're able to tap into the tippy top of the state and the very far coast of the state, the entire span, and everyone is getting an equitable experience in PD. You're getting the same thing no matter where you are in South Carolina. So we really love our webinar format because of that. Well, we will move forward. Now, I'd like to talk to you about a little housekeeping for our session today. The QR code here will take you to the landing page. Now, remember, our landing page is where all of our resources are housed for this webinar today. Our landing page includes our slide deck as well as any links that you'll need throughout our presentation. Brenna will be dropping links throughout our slide deck today. She'll drop those in the chat. But if you want access to all of those in one place, make sure to grab that QR code for the landing page or the link in the chat. Additionally, we have a link for attendance. Because we are a state agency, it is important for us to be accountable that we are supporting a wide audience throughout our state. So if you will, please capture your attendance information on the attendance form. That helps us to know who we are supporting in our state and what areas are represented in our training. but it also is a way for us to capture that you are here engaged in our session and eligible to receive recertification credit at the end of our session together. Additionally, you'll see two icons in the bottom left-hand corner of the slide here. One is for the chat. Throughout our presentation today, if there are places where we would like for you to respond to us in the chat, you'll see a chat box icon on that slide. That just kind of keeps us calibrated to know when we need to drop something in the chat. Additionally, you see a white pencil icon. Where you see a white pencil icon throughout our slide deck today, you'll see that there is a corresponding box on your note catcher for you to capture your thinking. On your landing page, you have access to your note catcher there. Additionally, we sent it out in the email earlier this week for you to print if you wanted to, or just to use the digital version provided on the landing page. So, after all of that information, it's time for us to get into the good stuff, right? Okay, so recertification credits. We are so delighted to be able to provide you recertification credit for every hour of webinar you attend. So today's webinar is 2 hours. You'll receive 2 recertification credits. To receive that recertification credit, we ask that you have live attendance and participation in the webinar by filling out that attendance form at the very beginning, that you remain in attendance for the duration of our webinar today, and that at the conclusion of our webinar today, you complete the attendance and feedback form. So the feedback form will be at the very end, and Brenna will drop that link into the chat and just give us some feedback on our session today. And then within a week, you'll receive your recertification credit certificate. All right. So now let's dig into the purpose. Why are we here? I'm 7 minutes into a summer training and I want to know, what am I getting out of attending this webinar? Well, our purpose today is to support teachers in instructing the Foundations of Literacy strand in our ELA standards with instructional efficacy. Instructional efficacy means that the students in Pickens are receiving the same thing that the students in Lexington are receiving. Instructional efficacy means that my child receives the same instruction that your child receives, and that Bob's student receives. Everyone gets the same instruction and the same level of rigor, the same understanding, knowledge of their teacher. That instructional efficacy is something we want to ensure across our state. In the chat, I want you to drop your thoughts on why we want the Foundations of Literacy particularly taught with instructional efficacy. I'll say that again. Why do we want the Foundations of Literacy taught with instructional efficacy? Drop that in the chat, or if you feel comfortable, unmute and tell me. Kim, what are some answers we're seeing in the chat?
Okay, to ensure that all of our students are getting the same instruction, a strong background, equal reading skills, all on the same page statewide, creating a strong foundation for all students, equality for all,
Awesome, yes.
proficiency statewide.
All of those answers resonate in my heart for sure, especially when I think of those answers in light of the most recent SC Ready data that we have. The most recent data tells us that 54% of the students in our state are at meet or exceed in 3rd grade on SC Ready. And 54% is like the flip of a coin. Is that okay with us as educators? It's not okay with me as a mom, I can tell you that. That there's a flip of the coin on if my student will be at or above reading level when he gets to 3rd grade. That's concerning. So if we teach with instructional efficacy, these foundational skills, perhaps we can move the needle on that target of being proficient readers in our state. So, with that in mind, let's take a look at our agenda for today's session. We'll begin with an overview of the foundations of literacy. Then we'll move into unpacking just that phonemic awareness standard and indicators. We'll move into looking at some phonemic awareness assessments and how to use that assessment data to drive instruction. And then finally, we'll end with a little bit of feedback time and a time to listen and linger to any questions or concerns that you may have as stakeholders in our state. Now let's take a look at the professional learning goals we have for today's sessions. In the chat, after reading these professional learning goals, what are you hoping to accomplish from this training? Or what are some insights you hope to obtain and share with your school or district from your time in this training?
Hello. It is.
Hello. Audrey, is
Seeing
those
some
answers
great
come in?
response.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm seeing some great responses, just focusing on, just how to unpack the standards in an efficient and powerful way. Being able to help teachers and offer instructional efficacy for all the students, better understanding of strategies for implementation. Again, developing a wide range of strategies. Oh, how to reach students who are struggling with grade level content. Yes, I hope all of these goals are accomplished as we move on for today.
I love the adopting a wide range of strategies because I think of that, and especially in light of all of the high quality instructional materials that are about to arrive at your doorsteps of your classrooms, right? Every district and school in our state are adopting high quality instructional materials this year for ELA. And in those materials, you are going to encounter some incredible strategies for how to teach the foundations of literacy standards. But if we can build your toolbox with some additional strategies to support that instruction, that is our goal today. So glad you recognize that need. Now let's take a look at some professional commitments. These commitments come from shifting the balance. React in the chat. Give me a thumbs up or if you have read or heard about Shifting the Balance by Jan Birkins and Carrie Yates. Okay, good, good. A familiar text. Well, so in this book, they share some commitments of how we commit to shifting our instruction to bring in the science of reading into maybe what was a traditional balanced literacy classroom. Looking at these commitments, I want you to read all 6, and I want you to choose one commitment to adopt today as your personal commitment to this work. On your note catcher, I want you to write down that commitment in the top box on your note catcher. For me, as a person who has quite a loud inner critic, I'm adopting commitment number 1. And I think I adopt that commitment every single time we do one of these trainings because I have to make peace with the fact that the instruction that I had for many years in the classroom maybe wasn't aligned to some of the sections or expectations of the foundations of literacy. And and I have to reflect on that I missed the mark there, but I'm going to know better now and I'm going to do better in the future. So for me, that's always my commitment. Not looking back with regret, but looking forward with anticipation. All right. Well, that concludes my part of introducing our subject matter today. I'm going to pass the microphone over to Audrey.
All right, well, let's go ahead and get started into the standards. So, as educators, we know that our ultimate goal is to ensure that all students become proficient readers who can comprehend text. Do we all agree? And give me thumbs up for this if we're all in agreement. But in order to comprehend text, it requires a number of skills. So we're going to have you go back to your note catcher right now and love for you to sketch out a tree under the section titled Foundational Roots for Reading Comprehension. And your tree, it should have some branches. It should also have roots. In the root section, I'd like you to list out what are the foundational reading skills that you think are necessary for reading comprehension to become a reality for students. Then we're going to begin watching a video of a short segment from a conference that was hosted by the Logic of English company. Some of you may be familiar with this book that you see on the screen, The Logic of English. If you're ever wondering why words are spelled the way they are, how regular English language is, this is a great resource to access. As we watch the video, I want you to add to your drawing of your tree. Maybe you may need to revise your drawing, and you can just be adding notes. As we get started watching the video, just know that it stays on that image of the tree for an uncomfortably long amount of time, but it does shift. So just know it's coming. So go ahead and let's get started watching the video. You're going to add your notes to your drawing and additional information you gain.
I think it is much more helpful to think about this as if it's an organic process. So it's like planting a seed and growing a tree. And when this tree grows, it is much more complicated than bricklaying. But what I also want to point out about our tree is this. When we think about reading, we often think, look at those books. I can't wait for my students to go and open those books, to read them, to enjoy them, to comprehend them. But we forget something, don't we? We forget that down here in the ground are roots supplying the whole tree. And you'll notice these roots have words and skills on them. And then there's the paths within the tree that carry the nutrients from the soil up into those branches. So this picture from the University of Minnesota agricultural site, I think is really helpful because it reminds us that a healthy tree has roots that are much bigger than what we see on the top of the tree. And in the same way, those foundational skills for reading need to be dug deep. They need to be grown broadly. They need to be fostered so that tree is healthy. If you restrict the growth of the roots, you restrict the health and growth of the tree. So here's another way to look at it. Here are how some of these skills are organized into foundational or root skills. And you'll notice I put fluency in the trunk because fluency is really conveying those skills so that you get up to these other skills that we see. We see these parts more visibly when we think of students reading. Now, I want you to watch this little video of a seed growing, and I want you to tell me, what do you notice? The roots grow first. But then, what else is growing? The stem, but do the roots stop? No. And that is something really key for us to understand about reading instruction. We do need to lay some root skills first. But we don't stop just because the stem starts growing. We keep fostering the growth of those roots because they need to keep growing in depth so that the tree can grow up large and strong. Now, sadly, a lot of schools are building, and a lot of people are building reading like this, really, really ad hoc, right? And then they build their entire education and they wonder, why does it crumble? The students start to crumble because they have this chaotic foundation. It wasn't laid in any way that makes sense.
Okay, so now that we've got this foundation, in the chat, we'd like for you to add what is one metaphor or imagery that the speaker was using that really stood out to you, or was there something that she said that really resonated with you? Go ahead and add that to the chat. Multiple, the roots never stop growing. The roots have to grow first. Yeah, healthy trees have roots. Yeah, instruction has to be systematic. Foundation is critical. Oh, great responses. Okay.
I think it is my
So prior to attending, we asked and encouraged you to read page 17 of our ELA standards. And this is the document that's the explanation of those foundation of literacy strand. And we also ask you to add 3 key words or phrases to a Mentimeter. And on our next slide, we're going to take a look at your responses. We have actually checked on this throughout the last couple of days, and it keeps growing and getting bigger. But the last that we saw was this actual one. And when I look at it, the first thing that I see is fluency, and that is our definite goal with comprehension. But that fluency is sitting on top of foundational. And if we don't build that foundation, then we cannot achieve that fluency. And so I want you to take just a moment to read over those words, those impactful words that you see. These terms are definitely based on research of that effective literacy instruction of the foundational reading skills. And in our standards, we see over and over in these the words guidance and support. We see that in phonemic awareness, phonics, fluency, vocabulary, comprehension, all the words that I see here on the screen. As we work over the next 4 sessions, we're going to gain a deeper understanding of that importance of explicit instruction. And we're going to see how these standards with the grade level indicators build in that progression or that continuum from kindergarten all the way to 5th grade. We have had the opportunity to share this training with coaches and district leaders around our state this past year. Audrey and I think we've done 10 of these sessions before entering the virtual world. And every time we discussed this, the same key words were identified by those groups. And so we're using this as our summary. And you'll notice at the top that big star, because we feel like that first paragraph that you see there on the screen is so important and it deserves another look. I want you to read that to yourself. And then notice how much research supports the importance of phonemic awareness. Phonemic awareness are the individual sounds. And I'll say that multiple times today, and I know Audrey will too. That is where the real effectiveness comes from. In the purple boxes down the side, we pulled out some other keywords that we just want to review with you. The Appendix A, That should be copied for all teachers, K-5 and beyond if you actually need it. Each interventionist, special ed teacher, content area teacher working with readers should have a copy of that Appendix A, and that is actually like the matrix of kindergarten, first and second grade foundational skills. And we'll talk about why that is so important in this next statement, because it says in here that the mastery level is in order to create the mastery level that we have to make sure that students have the previous skills. And if you want to silently or out loud read that sentence that starts with if students with me. If students are not prepared to master grade level indicators, educators should refer to previous grade level skills for guidance and instructional support. This means that we have to meet our students where we are. Our grade level standards we know have to be taught, but we also know that we can't teach those unless the previous skills have been mastered. And so we know that in some cases this could be in a whole group that you're having to pull out a specific lesson, but definitely in small group and with individuals. Universal screeners, we highlighted that, and we're saying use that data at the beginning of the year because it plays a critical role in your tiered instruction. Our new foundational standards and indicators are the building blocks. We saw that in the tree video that we just watched, and we also saw it in your responses to this page. So always keep in mind that last image of the video you saw with that upside down house. We want to build it from the ground up. Also, prevention and intervention. That phrase speaks for itself. Tier 1 explicit instruction is prevention, and that includes phonemic awareness, decoding, fluency, meaning, vocabulary, and spelling, being very systematic with our teaching. On another note, you're going to notice throughout our presentation today that purple must be our favorite color, and it is the main color of our presentation, and this is to help you remember how important this purple band is, our foundational band is. And we laugh a lot of times and say purple is that royal color, and that's where we need to make sure that we start right there at that spot. So you will hear us also mention several times that you are going to get a copy of all of our slides, and our slide notes are going to be in there for you because we feel like that you might want to go back into this yourself. But if your colleagues are not here with you today, or grade level teams, that you might want to share a lot of this information with them. There'll be parts and pieces of today's training that you'll be able just to pull out and use even in a faculty meeting or a grade level. And this definitely is one of those pieces. So what we just did was the golden words, where we read the text and highlighted the important words. Another idea that you could use with this is save the last word. And the directions are there on this slide if you want to try that protocol and see. So as we head into Standard 1, phonemic awareness, I want you to keep this quote in mind. I am going to read it, but I would definitely ask you to read it with me and put special emphasis on those red words. One of the most compelling and well-established findings in research on beginning reading is the important relationship between phonemic awareness and reading acquisition. So, thinking about Standard 1, ELA F1, demonstrate early phonological awareness to basic phonemic awareness and spoken words. That is our standard. And in order to understand that standard, we have to understand what is early phonological awareness, what is basic phonemic awareness. And as we dive into that unpacking of these indicators, I would we need to make sure that we know these important terms. And so on your note catcher, you are going to find a spot where you actually can define phonological awareness and phonemic awareness. Are they the same or are they different? Which one of those is the single best predictor of reading success? So we're going to give you just about 45 seconds for you to record your ideas on your note catcher of those two terms. As you are finishing up on your own individual thoughts, we are going to go on and talk about it more. And so we want you to use that note catcher as a place to actually add to your current thoughts as we delve into this. So phonological awareness and phonemic awareness are not the same. However, both are alike in that phonological awareness and phonemic awareness both do not involve print. It is the sound. It is on the focus on the student's ability to attend to the sounds in our English language. The definitions in the gray boxes at the top actually come from our 2023 ELA glossary of terms that can be found on our website. And both of those terms, when you download that document, are on page 14. So phonological awareness is the awareness of speech sound system, including word, syllable, onset and rhyme, and phonemic level. This is like the umbrella that encompasses all of the levels of that speech sound. And then phonemic awareness is one of the 5 essential components of reading instruction. And just on a side note, those 5 are phonemic awareness, phonics, vocabulary, fluency, and comprehension. So phonemic awareness is a subcategory of the phonological awareness. And this image of the umbrella that you see here is from the National Center on Improving Literacy. And we see both the phonological awareness and phonemic awareness skills. So let's delve deeper into that umbrella. In the gold part, you see the word level. The blue is the syllable level. The red is the onset rhyme. And then that last area is the phonemic awareness. And you can see we're going from the whole down to the individual. The word level is the most simple. It is a whole word. It's like rhyming words like bat and cat and hat. Or it's alliteration where we're looking at the beginning of the same letter, like the bold, big, brown bear, all start with the B. Or it is that sentence segmentation where I'm counting the words in a sentence. I see the dog. That has 4 words. Then the syllable and the onset and rhyme are parts of words. Like the syllable of baby, there are 2 syllables in that. Onset is, when I'm in that red category, onset is the beginning consonant up to the vowel. So like in the word map, the onset is the M, the sound. The rhyme is the vowel and the remaining letters. So in the word map, the rhyme is app. Again, phonological awareness is those larger units of sound. Its ability to recognize those larger units of sound that is the precursor to that phonemic awareness. So now we're back down to that last category of phonemic awareness. That is individual sounds. It's the segmentation of all the sounds in the word moon. Moon. I'm breaking each of those apart. This is that necessary level that we must reach with beginning readers This is where that extensive research that supports that explicit instruction and phonemic awareness. And all of that, it leads to accelerated reading and writing of achievement. Also put the video that you're seeing here on the screen and ask that you watch that prior to coming, just so that we all would be on the same playing field with unpacking the standards, because we knew that our audience today was going to be wide. We would have different grade levels and roles and experience. We're not going to watch that video today, but we want you, if you haven't watched it, you may want to go back and take a look at that. Because as we unpack our standards today, kindergarten, first and second grade of these standards, we're going to use this same protocol and how to do that. And just as important, it is necessary to know those expectations at all grade levels. So we will unpack the kindergarten, first, and second grade, regardless of the grade you teach, because you want to see where your students may have come from, what they might be missing, and how you will fill in those gaps. Or you may have students who have already reached their grade level standards or indicators and might need to move up some students in small group. So just to recap this video, the video was aligning instruction to academic standards. We know that in order to do that, we have to have standards. That is necessary. It's important. It's required. And as we unpack the standards and especially these indicators, we're going to focus on three components: skill, concept, and context. So skill is the verb. It is the action that the students will have to master. The concept is the noun. It's the learning. It's the application. It's the knowledge that is gained. Context is usually in the task. It's what we use to teach with. It's the work that's done by the learner. And sometimes context may be implied, and if it is implied in these indicators, we're going to help you see that too. And so we are going to use this skill, concept, and context as we unpack these standards so that we across our state are speaking that same language and understanding.
All right, so we are ready to move into unpacking the standards. So now you're going to want to get out your unpacking the standards document, and you'll see images like this right on your chart. We will start by unpacking indicator F1.1, and this is specifically for kindergarten. And so the verb or the skill that the students have to be able to do is count. What are they going to count? What is our concept or noun? They're going to be counting words. And it's to be done in a spoken sentence. So earlier, Kim was talking about phonemic awareness. Phonological awareness is done without print. And so we're thinking around how can students count the number of words just in a spoken sentence without text there. Now we can see here that for first grade and second grade and beyond, that there is not an indicator. So we have to remember to refer back to page 17 if students are not proficient in the skill. And not proficient means we need some remediation of some type. Maybe it's a small group with focused instruction specific to this indicator. Maybe it's one-on-one instruction. And this may occur in grades K through 5. If it's happening in K, it means that you've already taught it explicitly as your core instruction, and there were a handful of students maybe who didn't get it during just that core instruction, so you've got to pull them and reteach. But if you're in first, second, third, it can be even up to 5th grade. If you have students that aren't able to do this, then we have to make sure that students master these skills, remember, because we are laying the foundation. Okay, so what does this look like for instruction? We're going to watch a short clip of a team working with a small group. And as we are watching, I'd love for you to think about the question on the screen. What do you notice? Is there anything that you would do differently? And then what are some other activities that you might do for count the number of words in spoken sentences? As you're watching, feel free to add your ideas to the chat.
Phonological awareness provides the foundation that sounds and print are connected, the first step toward conventional reading. Some students will come to kindergarten with many emergent reading skills, such as knowing that sentences are made up of multiple words. Other students will need instruction in what can be considered as precursor skills to phonemic awareness. Sentence segmentation is considered the first step in phonological awareness. This skill requires students to hear the individual words in a spoken sentence. This activity may be conducted with the whole class or in small groups. Since not all students will need to learn this skill, it is recommended to differentiate instruction by teaching it in small groups to those who need it.
So we are going to work on segments and sentences. That's where we're going to break a sentence up so that we can hear all of the words. So we're going to first say the sentence with me, then we're going to count the words in the sentence, then we map the sentence out, and get to touch and read the sentence. I know that's a lot of steps, but I'll tell you each part. So first thing you do is say my sentence. He ran home. Say it.
He ran home.
Friends, now let's count how many words that we want. Say it again.
He ran home.
How many words did you hear?
3.
Now let's map it. Use your tiles.
He ran home.
Let's try again. Take your chips back to you. And when you say a word, you're going to push them up, and we're going to put them all in a line.
He ran home.
Now let's touch and say our sentence.
He ran home.
Now let's read it fluently.
He ran home.
Now let's put those tiles back. We're going to try another.
All right, I'm seeing some ideas in the chat. Great things. Comfortable learning space, safe space with the teacher, sitting with the students. She's speaking softly. They had manipulatives. It was explicit instruction. She clearly stated what they were going to do. She modeled for them. She had them do it, and she is supporting them. We always try to find perfect examples of instructional practices, and we have to come at it with a critical and mindful lens to really think about the delicate group of learners that we teach, because students are going to mimic what their teachers model. So one of the things that I noticed is because she had her chips in front of her, she was doing it exactly how it would look for her from left to right. But because her students were sitting across from her, that would mean that they were seeing right to left. So we just have to be mindful of that. Is if we are using this as a model, then we need to make sure we're modeling for them so that they can move from left to right. So that might be something I change. I also noticed her little cubes were right next to one another. If we're really thinking about word awareness, we might want to have spaces between them. So those were just a couple of things that we noticed that we might change up there. I love Dr. Anita Archer, and she says we get what we expect, or what we expect is what we get. So we've got to be mindful of this in all of our instructional practices. Practice does not make perfect. Only perfect practice makes perfect. Okay, so based on what we watched in the video, you may need to provide students with some scaffolds for them, maybe a digital word frame like we see on the chart. Of course, you don't have to do this digitally. You can always use sticky notes and sentence strips. So if this was a sentence strip, and I would say, okay, let's think about how many words are in the sentence, she is tall. Then the students would take those little colored squares or sticky notes or any kind of manipulative and put one word into each box that we see. We've added a green dot at the beginning because, some kids may need a little extra support knowing where to start with thinking that. And then the red dot is going to show where to stop. Now, students may not need this support, but it's a nice support for those who do. The second frame is a little less of a scaffold for students because the strip is not segmented out, but there is the green and the red dots. So this might be for a longer sentence. The boy plays ball. Now they're having to push more than one chip or more than just 3 up onto the sentence strip. We did add 2 different color chips or tiles here because we want to be mindful again about what we know about students. I know when I was teaching, my little friends always like to confirm that what they were doing was correct. So their eyes would be everywhere. And sometimes when we give them different colors, they're more focused on making sure their colors are the same as their friends instead of really focusing on the task at hand. So it's going to be up to you. Do you give them all the same color chip? Do you give them different colors? You'll have to determine that for yourself. We also have some just other quick tips or ideas for you where you would have a variety of sentence already planned out that you would say to the students, and then you could either have them clap the sentence with you. So today is Tuesday, and they would clap. Today is Tuesday. Or you might have them stomp it, or you might have them pound each word in order to determine how many words are in the sentence. Now, the ones on the screen are a little bit more challenging because we see that they have some multi-syllabic words. So this is really going to help us to understand, do they understand that concept of a word? It's important to remember this is a skill within this indicator to be done with spoken sentences, which means students are not going to see the sentences first. Instead, you may say the sentence, then you clap or pound it to determine the number of words. So if you want to just focus on that skill, you may choose to do multiple sentences in a row. But if you're embedding this in maybe a shared writing lesson, you could do this before modeling how to write the sentence. So you can do this both for oral phonemic awareness or phonological awareness, and then you can just pull it right into your writing lesson as well, demonstrating for students why they are learning the skill in phonological awareness because it's going to be important for later parts of their day. Now we've dove into that first indicator, and you'll see right under it is a box that looks like this, where there are 4 questions for you to be thinking about. This is an area where, as we're going through our time together, any instructional resources that we share on the screen or you see come up in the chat, go ahead and add that to the instructional practices box. Where it says curriculum connections, this may be for a place that you're saying, I looked at our new curriculum and I didn't see anything around word awareness. I know I may need to embed this for some of my friends. Where it says classroom implications, you may be thinking, oh gosh, I need to invest in some sticky notes because that was a resource used a lot. Or I need to raid my math closet because I saw some of those square tiles we use in math. We could use those for some phonemic awareness activities. So you might have a note there. And then where it says school and district implications, this is if you're coming as a school leader, or a district leader, you need to be thinking of what does this mean for our systems in general. Is this an area that maybe our kindergarten teachers need some additional support with, or additional resources that I need to provide for them? And that's where you would add a note there. As we move on through the rest of our time together, we will not be stopping specifically to fill out this section. The idea is that as we're going through, you're jotting your additional notes in there. So now we're going to move on to indicator 1.2. And you see in the corner, it says we do. So I'd love for you to join in as you're recording on your chart, thinking specifically for kindergarten. What is the verb? The verb is to recognize. And what are they recognizing? They are recognizing alliterative words. And the context, again, is that it is spoken. So again, this is all oral. We're not looking at words and seeing which ones begin with the same letter. We are just speaking and having them listen for those sounds. First grade, there's one little bitty change. Instead of recognizing alliterative words, they need to produce alliterative words in a spoken setting. Now, again, there's no indicators for second grade and beyond. And so we've got that note from page 17 to remind us that if students are not prepared at these grade levels for this indicator, then we have to go back and teach it. So here are some ideas for instruction. Maybe you provide your students with 3 sticky notes, 3 math tiles again, or maybe construction paper. And then you would say, which word does not start with the same sound? For example, watch me. I'm going to tap on each square and I'm going to say 3 words. Listen for the one that does not start with the same sound. Cookie, candy, visit. I keep hearing the k sound, but does visit start with k? No, visit does not start with the same sound. And so I would hold up the yellow sticky note. So now you have friends in front of you. They have their materials. They all should have the same colors to match yours. And again, you would model while touching. Game, guitar, paper. Friends, hold up the one that shows that is not starting with the same sound. Which one does not sound the same? And of course, then again, they'd hold up the yellow square. It's important as they're doing this that you are alternating where that not word is so that they don't believe it's just a pattern that you're following. Listening for alliteration can also occur while students are listening to read alouds. So here are a few examples of some of our favorite texts that students can use or that teachers can use with their students. But these are just examples. You might have other favorites that you love to use. But we know we want learning to be explicit, especially in these early grades. So we wouldn't just pick up a book to read and then go, hey, I noticed some words that are sounding the same. Instead, it needs to be done with intentionality. So you might start by saying, this book is titled Some Smug Slug. These words all begin with the sound s, like in sun. What other words start with s? As I read some, and then we would get a response from the students, and then we would say, as we read from Some Smug Slug, listen for other words that start like s, and make a snake hand movement to show me you noticed a word beginning like s. Now, notice how direct this teaching is. We repeated the title. We said the initial sound. We gave examples before eliciting responses from students. We've added in a little hand signal. So now they don't have to, hey, I found a word and interrupt, but they can show you. And now you're getting a good understanding of, are they recognizing those alliterative words? Then you can stop and prompt for them to produce it. In your note catcher, you might want to jot a few other titles in this section labeled Instructional Practices of books that maybe you've used before for alliteration. All right, so that was 1.2. So we'll move on to 1.3. 3. This one is a little bit complex, so I'm going to talk through this one. We can see that for kindergarten, students are to recognize, and that means, yep, these words rhyme, and they need to produce. I say cat, students say hat, mat, rat. And they are going to recognize and produce rhyming words. The context for this is using pictures or spoken words. They also have to distinguish. So that's the ability to notice and identify a word that does not rhyme with other rhyming words. So they need to distinguish the non-rhyming pair. Again, the context is using pictures and spoken words. For first grade, the skills are the same. The only thing that is different, so they have to recognize and produce pairs of rhyming words. They have to distinguish the non-rhyming pair. The only thing difference is that the context now is spoken words. So we've taken out the pictures. And again, second grade and beyond, there's no indicator, but we know if students have not mastered this skill, then the current teacher is responsible for providing instruction and intervention with this skill. Okay, so as we watch the video, we'll see this in action. Again, we see some questions that can guide your thinking, and you can add those to the chart or add those into the chat.
Rhyming is another precursor skill to phonemic awareness and letter sounds. After explaining that words rhyme if they sound the same at the end, and providing several examples and non-examples, students can engage in rhyming activities. For example, children can match picture cards that rhyme. Fox and box rhyme. They sound the same at the end. Dog and hat do not rhyme. They do not have the same ending sound. Car and jar rhyme. They sound the same at the end. Goat and pan do not rhyme. They do not have the same ending sound.
Okay. Oh, I see someone saying, I love using these resources and materials from Florida Center for Reading Research. And yes, those picture cards can be found that you saw in the video can be found right on the Florida Center for Reading Research website. And Brenna just put the link in the chat. Thinking about what other activities could you do to practice recognizing rhyming words or producing them. If you have other ideas, feel free to add them in the chat. This is a great place for you to share your great knowledge with others in our group today. Here is an example, again, using that same structures of the sticky notes. But now switching, instead of alliterative words, we're thinking about rhyming. So see if we can find the word that does not fit. Listen for a word that does not rhyme. So I'm going to say the word and point to each color tile. You hold up the one that does not rhyme. Fish, wish, heart. And of course, all the friends would hold up heart. This is a great way to ensure that everyone is engaged. When we say, oh, which one it doesn't rhyme, and they all raise hands, and then you pick on one, you've now limited the amount of practice that the others have because only one student really needs to respond. Others might be raising their hand that they haven't really thought about it. So we want to increase the amount of opportunities for practice. So using various manipulatives, make sure everyone engaged. It also is a great way for you to monitor who's got it, who may need to come back to the table for a little extra support. Also, we want students in first grade to be able to produce rhyming words. So that means you could add a little bit of fun to it, where we're saying, okay, you get them in a small group, you give them a bean bag or a little koosh ball, and then you say, okay, you all need to be thinking of words that rhyme with hat. And then who's ever holding the bean bag or the koosh ball says a word that rhymes with hat. Then they pass it to someone else in their group. And when you go back and forth, all producing rhyming words. And then after a few tries, you stop, you give them another word, and then they try it again. Great fun for practicing rhyming, producing rhyming. I see some great ideas in the chat again. Fantastic. We also added a few books that could be used to practice recognizing and distinguishing rhyming and non-rhyming words. When we're thinking about reading text with rhyming words, and we want to prompt students to recognize and produce rhyming words, maybe the first thing we'll do is you'll read a section and then can say, give me thumbs up if you heard rhyming words. And then they can give you thumbs up. Okay, now what were the rhyming words? Have them share it with you. Or as if you're working on producing, you might be reading, and then when it comes to where the rhyming word would be, how many of you have paused and let the students fill in the answer? Or fill in the word. You are now having them produce that rhyming word. So again, these are just a few of the many books that you can use for them. But again, we want it to be explicit in nature. So for example, if I was going to use sheep in a Jeep, I'd say this book is titled Sheep in a Jeep. Sheep and Jeep and the same. Eep. That means they rhyme. What are some other words that rhyme with sheep? How about sheep and man? Do those words rhyme? I'd say no. And then which word doesn't rhyme here? Keep, jump, leap. And they'd all yell out, jump. As we read sheep in a Jeep, let's listen for words that rhyme. So again, being very intentional with your language and specifically, what are you focusing on? Okay, we have just really focused in on all the skills for word awareness, thinking about the umbrella that Kim shared. We were just in that first column. We're now going to move into smaller sounds, and Kim's going to do a fun activity with you.
Audrey, you took those words right out of my mouth because that's what I was going to do, refer back to that umbrella of where we were. And so now we're going to look at the next three sections. So the second section of the umbrella section was the syllable. The third was the onset and rhyme, and then the final part of that umbrella was the phoneme, the individual sounds. And so when we think about syllables, those are our largest sound units in a word, and every syllable has a vowel. When we isolate the beginning consonant sound from the vowel and the remainder of the word, that is the onset and rhyme. And then when we talk about individual sounds, like in that word moon, moon, those are the three phonemes. When we were in person, we did this activity with stickies, and we asked everybody to take 3 different colored stickies and write those words. In our virtual world, we are going to use our hand signals. So when I'm going to give an examples in just a minute, and when I do, if I give you an example of a syllable type word, you're going to make the S hand signal with the thumb over your knuckles. If I give you an example and it is of the onset and rhyme, you're going to do the O and then cross your fingers for the R. That's onset rhyme. And if I give you an example with the phonemes, then you're going to do like a phone, where your pinky is at your mouth and your thumb is at your ear. And so go ahead and think about those, and you can do them with me right quick. Syllable, onset rhyme, and phoneme. So here we go. Syllables. Syllables. Everybody should be doing this. Pond. Oops, I gave you the whole word. Let's try this. Pond, pond. That should be onset rhyme. Sound, sound. Should be this because I segmented each of those sounds. T, onset rhyme. Reading, reading. That's syllable. And this last one is segment. That was segment, and I did each of those sounds. Remember, and I'll say it again, that is where we want to take our students to segment in each of those individual sounds.
All right, so hop on back to your unpacking document. Oh, sorry, Kim.
You're good. So we're going to take a look at that unpacking document, and we're going to be in standard indicator F14. And when we look at our kindergartner students, they have to do 3 things. So those 3 verbs are count, segment, and blend. What must they count, segment, and blend? Phonemes. And with what type of words will they use? They're going to use, in the context, single syllable spoken words of 3 to 4 phonemes. And 3 to 4 phonemes could be this. It could be CVC words like big, that's 3 phonemes. It could be a CCVC word, a consonant, consonant, vowel, consonant, like in the word frog. Or it could be a CVCC word that would have 4 phonemes, consonant, vowel, consonant, consonant, like in the word best. So kindergarten also need to segment something else, and you will see that they need to segment compound words. Remember, this is in spoken words. It's not in writing. So that makes it implied in this indicator that it is that spoken is implied, because we know that from our standard when we're looking at the big standard across the top that it says spoken words. So we need to make sure that we do that with this in our spoken words. So it could be like this. How many words are in the word cowboy? Cowboy. There's 2 words. It could be this, butterfly. What word did I just say? And you would put it together, butterfly. Or it could be to blend, to break a word apart. If I said rainbow, what 2 words are in rainbow? And you would say rainbow. So we had this conversation with our friends who are here with the Office of Assessment and Standard, and we talked specifically about this indicator because a lot of questions come up since it says at the very end and compound words, and that's exactly what it means, that we can count those words in a compound, we can break them up, or we can blend them back together. When it says in this indicator to count, segment, and blend phonemes in a word, our teachers have to understand what are phonemes, and how do I teach those to our students. And we always say, let's start with our consonant sounds in our English language. And one of the best ways to do that is with a sound wall, and to build that sound wall with your class, because building it with them helps them to understand that so much as we're talking explicitly through that. So this is a sound wall example. And we have seen several across our state and online as we've been studying. And we're going to share some other examples with you after Audrey goes through a sound wall. But this one, we liked it because it used just plain bulletin board paper. And that paper was laminated. It was labeled across the top and down the left side. And as the teacher works and talks with the students, she is adding those articulation or mouth cards, and she's adding a key picture or a sound in a letter as they're introduced. With that lamination, he or she, the teacher, can go back and write some spellings of some words when we pick that up in our and talk about it more in our phonics standard 3 session. But we like that because it could be added anywhere in your classroom, and thinking about space and knowing and setting this up prior to school, we just thought that this was an easy way to create a sound wall. These kid lip cards are what is used, and those are for tools for reading. And Mary Dahlgren is the developer of these. And Audrey is going to walk us through building a sound wall, and she's going to do this in less than 30 minutes, y'all. But we know that in our primary classrooms, this will take weeks to build. So please keep that in mind. She's going to go through it very quickly, what seems quickly, and this will be something that you will want to go back and study some more on your own.
Okay, so there are 44 sounds in the English language as compared to 26 letters in the alphabet. And so this is why the sound walls are way more beneficial to beginning readers and English learners. In the past, I used word walls. And when we really think about it, in reality, they're built for proficient readers. Because consider a student who's looking for the words, how to spell the word city on the word wall. They're making the sounds as they are saying the word city, but we're expecting them to know that the word is spelled with a C, because it's going to be organized in alphabetical order on a word wall. But on a sound wall, the different spellings of would be listed next to their articulation picture. So we're going to build a sound wall together, or a consonant phoneme chart for you, because if we're going to teach these sounds and ensure that students can count, segment, and blend the phonemes in a word, then we need to make sure that we are articulating them correctly and that students are able to articulate them correctly as well. So go ahead and get out your printed or digital copy of the consonant chart so you can create it with me. Now, before we get started, I want us to just get familiar with how it's organized. Up at across the top in the blue, this is what's occurring in your mouth. So whether the sound is being produced with your lips closed together, your teeth on your lips, the tongue between your teeth, the tongue on the ridge behind your teeth, the tongue pulled back to the roof of your mouth, the back of your throat, or then the glottis, which is way down deep in between your vocal cords. As I'm explaining this, you may be going, whoa, whoa, whoa. I am not a speech language pathologist. What is this all about? And I will tell you, the first time that I started learning about this, that is where I was ready to say, I'm out. This is not me. I am a teacher and I am not an SLP. But wow, as I learned and gained more knowledge, I see, oh my goodness, and every day, students in classrooms and students I tutor, how they articulate sounds and how it is affecting their reading, their spelling, their writing, and now I know how to address it because of knowing this information. So I encourage you to use one of those commitments from before and lower your defenses and take this in so that you can gain some knowledge here around it, or maybe refine it, or maybe just confirm, hey, yeah, I know this already. Okay, so then we just went across the top and know that those sounds at the front is where it's occurring in the front of the mouth, and then we're slowly going to be moving to the back. Now, down the side, we see the types of sounds. There are stop sounds, so it's just one puff of air, and so it's like a stop. A nasal sound, it goes through your nose. The air is going through your nose. Fricatives means there's some kind of friction. Affricates are a combination of a stop and a fricative. A glide, the sounds are gliding, the consonant sounds are gliding into the vowels, makes it kind of tricky for kids. And then liquids, the sound is really kind of hard to pinpoint where it's occurring in the mouth. It's kind of rolling around in there. And so those can also be tricky for kids. So as we're going through, I encourage you to make the sounds with me. We're going to start in that first box. Our lips are together. And if we did one puff of air, we have the sound but. Oftentimes in one box, there could be two different sounds. Depending on our voicing. Voicing means is our voice box turned on or is it turned off? The sound, our voice box is turned off. But if we turn it on and do the same thing with our mouth and one puff of air, we have B. And now we have two sounds made with the same part of our mouth. So often kids may be spelling things wrong because they have a voicing issue here. You can help them by saying, hey, feel your throat. Do you feel the vibration? Or try it with your ears covered. Everyone now, try it with your ears covered. I promise you don't look silly. You're going to say, and then, it's a big difference what you hear in your head, that kind of vibration there. Okay, so you'll see that we drew or we wrote in the box the P and B. Those little lines are called virgules. That means we are to say the sound that's in there. Okay, we are going to move to the next round section with our tongue on the ridge behind our teeth. And now we have the sounds T and D. Now, these can be tricky because sometimes we will say it and we say t or d or p or b, and we do not want that. We don't want to model that. We don't want our kids to be saying that because once they get to writing, they're going to start adding in that U in there because you're adding a schwa. Anytime we say a vowel sound, our mouth opens. So we are just doing consonant sounds right now. We got to keep that mouth closed as much as possible. So one way I do is I ask kids to hold their chin up. That kind of closes off from having the schwa sound added on. Okay, then at the back, we have the sounds of k and g. Two different voicings, k and g. This is a little bit tricky because really we can't see what is occurring there. So let's look at what that might look like close up on a sound chart or a word or sound wall. Yes. And so you can see the picture cards. Some of you have been asking where to get those. You can order them from Tools for Reading. In UFly has free ones, but they are illustrations of the mouth. And then the state of Louisiana has created a whole sound wall kind of kit for you with pictures of kids' mouths, but you would have to print and then laminate. But all those are in the chat for you to support. They're also in the notes. Okay, we're going to go to the next line. These are our nasal sounds. So the air is coming through our nose. If we put our lips together and then make a sound, we have mm. We want to make sure, and we saw this in the chat, we don't say m because now we've added on a schwa. Now, try to say the sound with your nose plugged. It's really tricky because, again, the air is flowing through our nose. That is why it's a nasal. You can teach that to kids and they're going to think it's the coolest thing ever. Also, now we know why sometimes kids may have difficulties with writing when they come to school with a little cold. Okay, if we put our tongue on the ridge behind our teeth, we have not n, just Good. And then here was the sound out of nowhere that I had to learn. It occurs in the back of our throat. It's the sound like in the word sing. We don't say often. I don't say sing. I say just sing. Or it's in the word sink. Sink. So that's completely different than or and still considered a nasal. We want to teach it because there are phoneme or graphemes or letters that represent those sounds. And for kids that are trying to spell a word and then they make that sound, they're like, wait a second, we've never been taught this. And so if we teach it explicitly and then teach the graphemes that connect it during standard 3, then they'll know how to spell it. Those are all of our nasal sounds, and we can see it on the chart. You can also see how we've got the picture card next to it of a keyword and then the spelling that has been taught so far that represents those sounds. The next one are the fricatives. Remember, these are where friction is happening somewhere in the mouth. So when we have our teeth on our lips, the friction is what's happening with our teeth on our lips. So we have, and the voice sound is v. We then have our tongue between our teeth. We have, oh, well, look at that. Guess what? There is a voice sound as well. Everyone try it with your voice box on. Often programs do not teach this sound, so you'll want to look closely in your new curriculum to see, do they teach the sound as just a voice sound? Because if it's just, or unvoiced sound, if it's just the unvoiced, it may be important that you add in a lesson on voiced or because they write words like them and this and that, which all have the voice sound of the TH. Okay, if we put the tongue on the ridge behind our teeth, we have, yes, we have, and the voice sound is z. Good. Tongue pulled on the back of the roof of our mouth, we have, yes, the sound shh. And then again, the sound that we don't often teach. So our mouth is doing the same thing. Shh and the only thing different is the voicing. And that zh sound is often not taught, but think about in our ELA class, one of the first things we're talking about is what is the genre of this text, and we're using that. Or in math, we're asking students to measure a certain space. Or if you've got a cute treasure box in your room, the kids are hearing it and they're saying these words. We want to ensure that they are able to focus in on it and then learn the sound symbol correspondence. And then way down in the back of our throat, between our vocal cords, the friction is made with the air passing over our vocal cords. We have the sound h, not huh, just h. We'll go, and here is our chart close-up. We'll now go to the next row, just has one pair of affricates. Remember, this is the combination of a stop and a fricative. We have ch and and turn on our voice, and it's J. And I have a little friend here that I tutor, and this is hard for him every time, and his spelling reflects it. All right, our next row are glides. These are the sounds when our consonant sounds are gliding into the vowel sounds. And we have, and the voice with our lips together. Then when we pull our tongue on the back roof of our mouth, we have the sound E. Woo, this one is tricky, and this has been a new sound for me to really learn, because I think I've always said yeah, but knowing when we say the word yes, if you really stretch it out, you can hear the sound. I'm going to have to go back to what the arrow is pointing out in the picture. And so recently, Jack Hartman did a video with the help from Dr. Holly Lane from UFly as an articulation of sounds video. So if you haven't checked it out, check out Jack Hartman's newest video on the sounds, and he's got the y down. Okay. We then can see this extra box here. Depending on which sound wall you reference, you may see the w sound with the mouth to lips together, or you may see that it's occurring in the back of the throat. And this is the sound like Now, I always joke around, because if you really listen between myself and Kim, we say those sounds differently. She will say it's because I'm from the north, that it's coming from the front of my mouth. When are we heading to lunch? And Kim may say, when are we heading to lunch? She's much more formal and must have inner Princess Diana hanging out in her. All right, so depending on which sound wall you look at, you may see it in both places, but we wanted you to be aware of that. Okay, and then the final two sounds are the liquid sounds. These are, again, tricky for kids because it's really hard to pinpoint where it's happening in our mouth. And we have L, where the tongue is on the ridge behind our teeth. L. And then we have the tongue pulled back on the roof of our mouth. We have R. R. Be careful with this one, because I see in classes often that the letter R, when it's being reviewed for the sounds, students say and that is not the consonant sound. That will be a vowel sound we learn later. But we don't say rabbit, or are you ready to go to lunch? We say ready, rabbit. So making sure that we're articulating very clearly, those sounds will be important. Okay.
So here is another example of how a sound wall could look when it is completed. And it is best to build that sound wall with your students as your sounds are taught or reviewed, like in second grade. These are some quick tips that we've highlighted. We're giving you two different options. The first option is build that sound wall as you teach your sounds with your students. Share those picture cards, those phoneme cards, the articulation, build it as you go and put it up. Some teachers, though, like option 2. They want to put up their whole wall so that they know where the spacing is, and they cover or flip everything over backwards, or they cover it with like little sticky notes or little like a little lock icon, and then as they teach that sound, then they take that that off, that covering. And so again, those tools for reading have to be purchased, like Audrey said, but there are a lot of free resources out there. Check your new curriculums, because there are several that have some downloadable resources that are available. Especially if you go to that PD section, you'll find a lot of them there with your new curriculum. So here are some other quick tips for building a sound wall. Our first thought is follow your scope and sequence. In kindergarten and first grade, build as your sounds are introduced. However, that your new curriculum shares that, go ahead and do it. You'll start fresh, usually in kindergarten and first grade. In second grade, you're going to begin the year with a word wall that already has the sounds that have been taught in KN1, and then you're going to just build in new sounds for second grade. A daily lesson with your sound wall and teaching those sounds is probably going to be 6 to 10 minutes. And remember, it's sounds, but it's leading into letters. So we don't want you to think that this is totally in isolation. Right now, we are studying these indicators in isolation, but by the time we get to Standard 3 in our third series, we're going to help you to connect the phonemic awareness to the phonics. Think about space. Stand in your room. Where is the best place for you to post this? Later on today, we're going to show you a vowel valley, and you'll need two of those going on. A sound wall is your consonant. Vowel valley is for, of course, your vowels. They should be close in proximity, but they do not have to be side by side. But you will need plenty of space. Go ahead and use those headers and labels, like where it said lips together, because the kids, they will start doing that. They will use their little mirrors. They will pinch those lips together to say certain sounds. Or like Audrey was talking about, those glide sounds. Always use those articulation mouth cards. We feel like that is important, especially for our primary students. Use this sound wall as a sound spelling wall. It is a great reinforcer teaching tool for reading and writing throughout the year. It is your awesome anchor chart that's going on. Make it interactive. Do it as you go together, and then expect your students to use it as they're working through. Sometimes you will add words to this, but not all the time. Remember, in kindergarten, our goal is that students will be able to blend and segment 3 to 4 phoneme words. So if that's the case, words like big and fast, you might not need those on there, because they should be able to do that orally and in writing. Now we're going to show you some sound walls that definitely need some tweaks to them. The one on the top is a good sound wall. It is something that you might run into the teacher supply store and pick up and say, I put up my sound wall. But what we have discovered with ones like this are they definitely need bigger space for you to make those interactive, and they don't have those mouth cards, those articulation cards. The bottom one is very organized, very put together, and you might need to just open that up a little bit more with some more space. And again, those headers might be important. Not that the kids need to know the word glottis, but that's your reminder when you see that you're saying, hey, that's coming from the back of your throat. That H sound is coming from back here. Don't forget. So sometimes those little words are written up there for teacher to remember as well. This is a resource of a sound wall that I recently discovered. It was highlighted in a professional development series on the book 7 Mighty Moves by Lindsay Kimney. And when I saw in her presentation, it was actually a reading league from several different states, and they were talking about creating this in the virtual world. I know that we do have several virtual teachers who are with us even today, day. And so they created this sound wall together with students virtually over time. And so that the link to that webinar is actually going to be on your slides. You don't have to worry about getting it now, but when you get your slides, you might want to go back to this slide 39 to find that. So that takes us back to 1.4, Audrey.
Okay, so we took a little detour to focus in on the consonant chart. And because specifically with this indicator that we're to count, segment, and blend phonemes. So in order to do that, we have to ensure that we are articulating them and teaching those phonemes correctly to our students. So this is to help us bring us back. Why did we just go through all of that? Now let's look at some instructional practices that we could use. So here are just some fun ideas that you could do. You could have students talk like a snail. Take a simple word and stretch it out very slowly. Flag, and see if they can blend it together. Or have partners take turns saying different words like a snail, and then their partner has to blend it together. Having students tapping it out on their fingers, tapping it out on their arms. I prefer tapping it out on fingers because even though this might be tricky for friends or little friends at first, think about the pencil grip strength that you are building when you're having them do that. That's going to help with that pencil grasp. But you could do cat, at, and then move to more difficult words like fish, ish. Remember, it is one tap per sound, not per letter. That's the same with Elkonin boxes. Many of you are familiar with it, but we have to divorce ourselves from the spelling of words and really just focus on the sounds. So in sheep, we only have 3 sounds, which is why we are pushing 3 different sounds in sheep. And then say you want to take learning outside. And so you decide, hey, let's play a little sound word out at recess. Just like duck, duck, goose, but instead you would tap a student, d. Next one, ah. Next one, g. And then the last person has to blend those sounds together to say dog, and then chase around, and then you begin again. So those are just some fun activities that you could do. Here is another example of an activity that can be done with students called Tap It, Map It, Zap It.
We're going to show you how to do Tap It, Map It, Zap It, taken from Judy Dodson's 50 Nifty Activities. This activity develops and reinforces phonemic awareness. Phonemic awareness is crucial to reading development. It is the ability to attend to the speech sounds in the English language. Segmenting and blending sounds lays the foundations for phonics instruction. Phoneme means an individual speech sound. For example, the phonemes or sounds in the word dog are d, a, g. Phonemic awareness is about sounds, not print. In order to do the activity, you will need some sound boxes, chips or markers or candy, and then a magnetic wand to swipe the chips off. You can also use a home magnet. You will also need picture cards for the words. The first thing you'll do is draw a card. So the word is cat. Can you tap the sounds in cat?
At.
How many sounds in cat?
3 sounds.
So get a chip for each sound. Now let's map it. Say the sounds in cat and push a chip for each sound.
At.
Now zap it.
Cat.
Good job. Let's try another one.
Okay, so these little magnetic wands you can get, I found them on Amazon. Kids love them. All of a sudden now they're able to tap and map and zap any word you give them because they are engaged with the tool. Okay. This indicator also has that other component of counting,
We're going to show you how to
segmenting,
do
and blending compound words. And the focus is on we're counting, blending, and segmenting and blending the words in a spoken compound word. So let's look at a resource for this. Again, we can find from Florida Center for Reading Research these picture cards. And so you could give students various picture cards and then have them match words that make a compound word. So the tooth and the brush make toothbrush. The sun and flower make sunflower. When doing these activities, it is important to make sure that students know the names of the pictures before beginning. This is a great activity you could do with a small group of students, or you could have a instructional assistant do this with a small group of students, or you might pass out the cards at the beginning of the day, and then you say, when you come to the carpet, sit next to your compound word partner, and then they would sit down. Okay. It is the expectation that the next step would be to count, segment, and blend syllables in multisyllabic words. It's not explicitly stated in the indicator, but is an essential skill to move from compound words to then into the syllables. They're still needing to count, blend, and segment those as well before we can get to the first grade indicator. So let's watch this quick video of a teacher working with a small group on syllables.
The ability to hear syllables in words is an important part of phonological awareness. Hearing syllables in words will help provide the foundation to decode words when reading and writing. Blending and segmenting syllables is considered a precursor skill to phonemic awareness and letter sound knowledge. Blending syllables requires the students to put together syllables of a word that were spoken separately. For example, if the teacher says picnic, the students would say picnic. Segmenting syllables requires the students to break a spoken word into syllables. For example, if the teacher said table, the students would say ta-bull.
Ready? Okay, remember we've been talking about syllables, and syllables are parts of the word, okay? Okay. Remember, the words are broken down, so I want you to watch me. I'm going to say the word flower. Flower, okay? Now, can you say flower? Flower. Okay, now we're going to break flower apart. Flower. Okay, now watch. Are you watching? I'm going to blend it back together. Flower. Okay. Flower. Right, now let's read flower. Okay, now I'm going to let you try. Okay, so I'm going to give you the cards. I want you to line up the cards together. All right. Okay, so they're together. Ready? The word is monkey. Say monkey. Monkey. Okay, separate the word by syllable. Monkey. Okay, now blend it back together. Monkey. Okay, say turtle. Turtle. Okay, let's break it apart. Turtle. Okay, let's blend it back together. Turtle. Great job. Let's try apple. Apple. Okay, let's blend it back together. Apple. Good job. Let's try the word puppet. First syllable, pup. Puppet. Okay, blend it back together. Puppet. Okay, and let's try apple. There we go. Wait, we're going too fast. Let's try again. First syllable.
Fantastic. Okay, so we can see how she was just using simple note cards. Syllable segmentation and then blending back together. Another activity you could do is having this activity. It's your turn to see if I can guess a word when you use robot talk. So, Kim, will you select any animal on those picture cards and say it like a robot? And I'm going to see if I can blend it together.
Rabbit.
Rabbit. All right, so robot talk, very easy way to get kids to segment. And then you can practice blending back together. You could do it in themes of words, animals, food, zoo animals, movies, all different kinds of things that you could do. Okay, so that was all for ELA F14 for kindergarten. When we get to first grade, the ante hypes up a little bit, and now we're doing some manipulation of sound. So instead of counting, segment, and blending, we're beginning to delete and add syllables in spoken words and in compound words. And this indicator has an indicator insight. An indicator insight is included to provide teachers with just some clarifying information about the expectations or the content of the indicator. And some insights provide connections to other indicators or support documents. So you want to be aware of those in your standards. For ELA 1.4, the indicator gives an example what students should be able to do at the mastery level. So for deletion, you would say rainbow, say it again, but don't say rain, and they would have to say bow. Or for adding, you'd say cow, say it again and add boy, cowboy. And that would demonstrate mastery at this indicator for first grade. Here's another example for syllable deletion. I'm going to say a word. I want you to not say part of it. Don't you dare. So say airplane. No, don't you dare say air. And all the students would have to be able to say plane. Now, if kids are struggling with this, maybe they need some type of manipulative to help them. So maybe you start with picture cards. So we'll say tiger. Now say tiger, but don't say tie. And you would take away the one part of the tiger, and you just have grr left. Then we could add it back, and we'd say, okay, say tiger, but don't say grr, and that would disappear. The pictures add a little bit of an anchor for the students. If they're doing great with that, maybe you want to reduce the amount of scaffolding and you try it with just sticky notes or construction paper. Say birthday, but don't say birth. Put birth back. Say birthday, but don't say day. And you take it away until eventually they can just do it orally. So those are all just activities that you could do for the first grade indicator. Now let's move on to ELAF 1.5. Okay, so for kindergarten, their goals are to blend and segment. And what are they blending and segmenting? They are blending and segmenting the onset and rhyme. And the context here is single syllable spoken words. So just one syllable words. In first grade, they also have to blend and segment the onset and rhyme. But the way it gets ratcheted up for first grade is that this is occurring in multisyllabic words. Now, in some professional texts, it will be stated that in multisyllabic words, every syllable has an onset rhyme. So in butterfly, it would be b, ut, t, I, but that was not the intention of the standards writers. With this first grade indicator for South Carolina, it is that students, if they heard the word candy, they would be able to say Andy. Or if it's silly, they're able to say illy. That's the intent of this indicator in South Carolina. This and Mandy, we are not going to watch this video, but it will be there for them to watch. It's just an overview of what unsaid in rhyme is. But I did want to point out that if students are struggling, you can use different hand signals. So having them use their thumb for the onset of a word, like in the word mat, they have at, at for the rhyme part. If it's plate, it would be pull 8. Pull 8. Now, once kids are good with that physical movement, maybe you want to move to manipulatives of a small piece for the onset, a larger piece for the rhyme, and they're holding it up for each component. And here's another quick tip. If you're wanting to do some fun games, you could play a secret code. Give you a clue. You're going to give me the answer back as a secret code. So, breaking out the first sound and then the rest of the word. So, Little Bo Peep lost her. Kim and Mandy, what would the response be?
Sheep.
Yes, and if we were doing onset rhyme, we would have. You got it. Sheep. Dory and Nemo are ish. And so those are fun things that you could do, lining up as your attention getter before you get started with your lesson.
All right. We are going to make just a little adjustment to the rest of our session for today. Because of time and to honor your commitment to being here for 2 hours, we are going to postpone our in-depth look at F1.6 and 1.7. So I'm going to quickly skip through a lot of slides. Close your eyes if you don't want to get seasick as we jump over quite a few. Don't worry, this information will be shared with you in our next section. So in our next session together on June 25th, we will definitely dig deeply into F1.6 and F1.7. But again, to honor your time commitment with us for 2 hours today, we want to jump ahead to a little clarity and closure. So as we think about phonemic awareness, I want you to respond in the chat with either your head, your heart, or your feet. Think of your head, responding with your head, of what are you currently thinking? Are you thinking this phonemic awareness stuff is brand new and we've never taught that, or I've never instructed that in my experience in a K-1-2 classroom? Are you thinking with your heart? Are you feeling a little sad, like I am, about the students that you taught where you weren't able to dig into these phonemic awareness skills? Or are you thinking with your feet today and you are inspired to go get your printer fired up in your laminator and make you a sound wall and have your cards ready to go for that first day of school? So just think for just a minute. I'll give you about 1 minute just to ponder. What are you thinking? What are you feeling? Or what are you inspired to do or try? As those come to mind, I'll let you drop those in the chat. Audrey, what are some things we're seeing in the chat?
Some heart, just excited to get started with some of this. So lots of feet, like how do I roll this out with the rest of my teachers who aren't here? Feet with, I want to build sound walls.
Yes.
My teachers are going to need some training with some sound walls. Yes, and we flew through that today. And so watching the videos that are on there, attending other sessions, going back, rewatching this will be helpful. And it reminded me of my letters training, and that is so important because we want teachers to see as they're going through letters training that letters and standards and curriculum are not all 3 different buckets. These are all working together to support teacher knowledge and teacher practice to support the learning of the students. We are connecting all of those through these sessions. So I'm so glad that somebody made that connection.
All right, I agree. I love some of that feedback, especially connecting all 3 standards, curriculum, and that letters training. There's such a invisible string there. Well, if you are feeling a little overwhelmed or a little intimidated by some of the information you heard today, I want you to think about this quote. Let's read it together. To be an effective teacher, you must always remain a student. I don't know about you, but this is I think the second or third time I've heard this information, yet I feel like a student. There were things I heard today that fell on fresh ears, things that I need to engage with and think more about. So if you are still learning as you are entering this PD with us, that means you're an effective teacher and you're good at what you're doing. So we appreciate you being vulnerable and sticking with us these 2 hours today. We hope you'll come back next time. But to close out our time together in this first session, we would love your feedback. In the chat, Brenna's going to drop the link to our unique feedback form for this session. We ask that you complete this feedback form. You'll select your presenters today. Again, my name is Mandy Hawker, Kim Camp, and Audrey Goninen were our presenters as well. I don't think you have to enter the title because it's a specific feedback form that you're entering today. But make sure if you want that recertification credit that you take the time to fill out the feedback form and respond. That is how we are going to check and ensure that your feedback certificates are sent to you. Also, we want you to please let us know how we can improve our session and improve our support of you all. If you have any questions or any next steps for us, include those on the feedback form as well. Audrey, Kim, and I will listen and linger for about 15 minutes. If any of you have any questions or just want to stick around and mention something to us or ask us for something, we are here for you. But thank you for joining us today and giving and investing your 2 hours to develop yourselves in the foundations of literacy so that these standards and indicators can be taught with instructional efficacy. We appreciate you being here today. Fill out that feedback form, and we'll see you next time.